Hi everyone, I'm back. Sorry we took a little break from our read aloud, especially after leaving on such a huge chapter where craziness happened. But I'm back. I'm going to do a video for chapter 22, a video for chapter 23, and then I'm actually going to do chapter 1 of our new read aloud book. So stay tuned for that. Big time excitement. So we're on chapter 22, and the book ends with chapter 23. When we ended on chapter 21, what was crazy is we learned that Kira's father, Chris, is alive. Maddie brought him back on his quest for Blue, and that her father Chris is blind, and yeah, comes back into the picture. So when we stopped, it was just in that crazy moment where she learns that her dad's alive and just full on. So here we go, chapter 23. Remember the signpost along in order, and then send me pictures of the signposts so that you can get extra credit. Chapter 22. In some hidden place in which Matt had led him in the night, her father slept. But before he had left her in order to sleep, he had told her his story. No, it was not the beast, he says, in order to reply to her first question. It was men. There are no beasts out there, he said, his voice as certain as Annabella's had been. There are no beasts. All right, so you see here where my fingers are, we got curvy italicized font. There are no beasts. We can log that as again and again. So the statement, the author is using the statement, there are no beasts, multiple times. Her dad is now confirming what Annabella had said. That kind of tortured Kira for a long time. She was really questioning, like, how can there not be any beasts? That's what she's been told her whole life. So he's confirming it, and now he's going to probably tell this story that's going to show us that how their government might be messed up, right? We've been suspicious for a bit. But Kira began to interrupt to tell her father what Jameson had told her. I saw your father taken by beasts, Jameson had said, but she waited and continued to listen. Oh, there are wild creatures in the forest, of course. We hunted them for food. We still do. Deer, squirrels, rabbits, he sighed. It was a large hunt that day. The men gathered for the distributions of weapons. I had a spear and a sack of food. Katrina had prepared food for me. She always did. Yes, I know, Kira whispered. He seemed not to hear. With his blank eye, he seemed to be looking backward in time. She was expecting a child, he said, smiling. He gestured with his hand, making a curve in the air above his own belly. In a dreamlike way, Kira felt herself inside the curve made by his arched fingers, inside the memory of her mother. We went in the usual way, together at first in groups, then separating into pairs, and eventually finding ourselves alone as we followed tracks or sounds deeper into the forest. Were you frightened? Kira asked. He shook himself loose from the slow, measured speech of his memory and smiled. No, there was no danger. I was an accomplished hunter. One of the best. I was never frightened in the forest. Then his brow furrowed. I should have been worried, though. I knew that I had enemies, and there were jealousies, always, and there were rivals. It was the way of life here, and perhaps it still is. Kira nodded, then she remembered that he couldn't see her acknowledgement. Yes, she told him, it still is. I was soon to be appointed to the Council of Guardians, he went on. It was a job with great power. Others wanted the post. I suppose it was that. Who knows? There were always hostility here, harsh words. I haven't thought about it in a long time, but now I recall the arguments and anger, and even that morning when the weapons were assigned. Kira told him, it happened again recently, at the beginning of the hunt. I saw it, fights and arguing. It's always that way. It's the way of men. He shrugged. So, it hasn't changed. How could it change? It's the way it is. It's what tykes are taught to grab and shove. It's the only way people can get what they want. I would be taught that way too, but for my leg, Kira said. Your leg? He didn't know. How could she? How could he? Now she felt embarrassed having to tell him. It's twisted. I was born that way. They wanted to take me to the field, but my mother said no. She defied them? Katrina? His face lit and smiled. And she won? Her father was still alive, and he was a person of great importance, she told me. So they let me keep her. Or so they let her keep me. They probably thought I would die anyways. But you are so strong. Yes, Mother said pain has made me strong. Telling him she no longer felt embarrassed but proud. She wanted to be proud too. He reached out and she took his hand. She wanted him to go on. She needed to know what had happened, so she waited. I don't know for certain who it was, he exclaimed when he continued. I can guess, of course. I knew he was bitterly envious. Apparently, he approached silently behind me, and as I waited there, waiting for the deer I had been stalking, he attacked me, first with a club to my head so that I would be stunned and dazed, and then with his knife. He left me for dead. But you lived and you were strong, Kira squeezed his hand. I woke in the field. I suppose draggers had taken me there and left me, as they do. You've been to the field? Kira nodded, then remembered his blindness again and said it out loud. Yes. She would have to tell him and why, but not yet. I would have died there as I was supposed to. I couldn't move, couldn't see. I was dazed and in great pain. I wanted to die. But that night on, he went on, strangers came to the field. I thought at first it was the diggers. I tried to tell them that I was still alive, but when they spoke, it was with their voice of strangers. They used our language, but with a different lit, a slight change of cadence. Even as desperately wounded as I was, I could hear the difference, and their voices were soothing, gentle. They held something to my mouth, a drink made of herbs. It dulled my pain and made me sleepy. They placed me on a carrying litter as they've made of thick branches. Who were they? Kira asked, fascinated, unable to keep from interrupting. I don't know. I couldn't see them. My eyes were destroyed and I was delirious with pain. But I could hear their comforting voices, so I drank the liquids and gave myself up in their care. Kira was astonished. In her entire lifetime in the village, she had never encountered a single person who would have done such a thing. She knew no one who would be willing to soothe or comfort or aid a grievously wounded being, or who would know how. Except for Matt, she thought, how the boy had nursed his little damaged dog back to life. They carried me a great distance through the forest, his father went on. It took several days. I woke and slept and woke again. Each time I woke, they talked to me, cleaned me, gave me water to drink, and more of the drug to ease my pain. Everything was blurred. I remembered I didn't remember what had happened or why. But they healed me as much as I could be healed, and they told me the truth I would never see again. But they told me also that they would help me make a life without sight. But who were they? Kira asked. So we could log this as tough questions, but who were they is the tough question. We can log this as tough questions because Kira is asking the tough questions. Who are these people? It kind of goes with how she was reflecting a little bit ago on the fact that, you know, in her community, there's no one that would nurse someone sick back to health. So that these people, these strangers from outside, naturally care for human beings, even human beings they don't know, kind of astonishes her, and that's the tough question. Who are they, you should say, he told her gently, because they still exist and I am one of them now. They were just people, and they were like me, who were damaged, who had been left to die. Who had been taken from our village to the field? Her father smiled. Not only from here, there were other places. They had come from all over. Those who had been wounded, sometimes not just in body, but otherwise as well. Some traveled very long distances. It's astounding to hear of the difficult journeys. And those who have reached this place where I found myself, they have formed their own community, my community now too. Kira remembered what Matt had described, a place where broken people lived. They help each other, her father explained simply. We help each other. Those who can't see, they guide me. I am never without helping eyes. And those who can't walk, they are carried. Kira unconsciously rubbed her own damaged leg. There is always someone to lean on, he told her, or a strong pair of hands for those who have none. The village of the healing has existed for a long time, he explained. Wounded people still come, but now it is beginning to change because children have been born there and are growing up. So we have strong, healthy young people among us, and we have others who have found us and stayed because they wanted to share our way of life. I want to move there. Kira was always trying to picture it. So, it is a village like this one? Much the same. We have gardens, houses, families, so it is much quieter than this village. There is no arguing. People share what they have and help each other. Babies rarely cry, and children are cherished. Kira looked at the stone pendant that rested again on his blue shirt. She touched her own matching one. Do you have a family there? She asked hesitantly. The whole village is like a family to me, Kira, he replied, but I have no wife and no child. Is that what you mean? Yes. I left my family here, Kira, and left my family here, Katrina and the child to come. He smiled. You. She knew she must tell him. Katrina, she began. I know. Your mother is dead, Matt told me. Kira nodded. For the first time in many months, she began to cry for her own loss. She had not wept when her mother died. She had willed herself to be strong then, to decide what to do and to do it. Now hot tears stained her face and she covered it with her hands. Her shoulders shook as she sobbed. Her father opened his arms, offering her an embrace, but she turned from them. Why didn't you come back? She asked finally, choking on the words as she stopped crying. Look, so that can be logged. Why didn't you come back is another tough question because he didn't. She's feeling really sad because he didn't come back for her, right? And so yeah, she's just feeling sad that her father, even though that he lived, didn't come back for his family. For a very long time, he said at last, I remembered nothing. The blows to my head had been intended to kill me, though they failed. It took my memory. Who I was and why I was there. My wife, my home, I knew nothing of it. Then very slowly as I healed, it began to come back. I remembered small things of the past. Your mother's voice, a song she sang. Night comes and colors fade away. Sky fades, for blue can never stay. Startled by the familiar lullaby, Kira murmured the words with him. Yes, she whispered, I remember it too. Then very gradually it all came back to me, but I could not return. I did not know how to find the way. I was blind and weakened. And if I did find a way back, it would be to meet my death. The ones who wanted me dead were still here. Finally, he exclaimed, I simply stayed. I mourned my losses, but I stayed, and made a life here without your mother, without you. And then, he went on, his expression lightening, after so many years had gone by, a boy appeared. He was exhausted when he arrived and hungry. He is always hungry, Kira said, smiling lightly. He said he had come all this way because he had heard that we had blue, and he wanted blue for a special friend, who had learned to make all the other colors. And when he told me about you, Kira, he knew you must be my daughter. I knew he must lead me back. He stretched slightly and yawned. The boy will find a safe spot to sleep when he returns. Kira took her hand and held it. There were scars even there, he saw. Father, she said, feeling the way uncertain with the words she had never used before, they won't hurt you now. No, I'll be safely hidden, and after I'm rested, we will slip away, you and I. The boy will help us pack food for the journey. You will be my eyes on the way home, and I will be the strong legs you lean on. No, Father, Kira said, excited now. Look, she waved at her arm, indicating the comfortable room. Then she paused, embarrassed. I am sorry. I know you can't really look, but you can feel how comfortable it is. There are other rooms like it along the hall, all of them empty, except for the ones Thomas and I live. One can be readied for you. He was shaking his head. No, he said. You don't understand, Father, because you're not here, but I have a special role in the village, and because of it I have a special friend on the Council of Guardians. He saved my life and he looks after me. Oh, it's too much to explain. I know you're tired, but Father, not very long ago I was in great danger. Someone named Vandara wanted to put me in the field. There was a trial, and Vandara, I remember her. That's the scared woman. Yes, scarred woman. Yes, that's the one, Kira acknowledged. It was a terrible thing, her injury. I remember when it happened. She blamed her child. He slipped on some wet rocks and grabbed her skirt so that she fell and gashed her chin and neck on the sharp rock. But I thought he was only a small tykes, but she blamed him. Later, when he died from the oleander, there were questions. Some people suspected, he paused and sighed, but there was no proof of guilt. She's a cruel woman, though, Kira's father said. You say she turned on you and there was a trial? Yes, but I was allowed to stay, and I was given an honored place. I had a defender, a guard named Jameson, and now he looks after me, Father, and supervises my work. I know he'll find a place for you. Happily, Kira squeezed her father's hand, thinking of a future that they would have together. But if it was as if the air in the room shifted, lines in her father's face tightened. The hand that she held stiffened and withdrew from hers. Your defender, Jameson, his father touched his own scarred face. Yes, he tried to find a place for me before. Jameson was the one who tried to kill me. Ooh. We can log this as contrasts and contradictions because this is definitely a plot twist that Jameson is the one that tries to kill him. So Kira learns that